Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and in this episode of Fantasy Lore and More, Caitlin Denman is joining me to talk about her new release, Blood Queen. So, welcome, Caitlin, and let's talk about Blood Queen. Now, first, the title, why Blood Queen? Is she a vampire?
No, okay, so Blood Queen, the whole, just like my whole first idea about the story, I'm a very big history buff, and I've always been fascinated with Elizabeth Bathory, and she was the first female serial killer, well, one of the first, and she was called the Blood Queen, and she liked to murder people and bathe in their
Wow.
blood and stuff, trying to stay young forever. And
Because who doesn't want to stay young forever?
I agree. So my whole thought was, well, what if there was a bigger reason behind her killings? Like, what if to protect her people, but she just let everyone think that she was awful?
Oh, wow. That's would you bathe in blood if it would keep you younger?
No.
Now I have to ask since it came up.
No.
I don't think I would either. That's just a little.
That just sounds gross.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to ask because you mentioned it.
There's a little nod to it in the book, and I
Yeah.
had one reader be like, I know what that's from. I know she's talking about Elizabeth Bathory. And I was like, yes.
That's pretty awesome. So let's hear more about the book. You want to give us the blurb or?
Yes, I will read the blurb because I am terrible at remembering things. Okay. Death gave her the throne. Now death is how she'll keep it. She may be called the Blood Queen, but Layla will do anything for her kingdom's peace. As queen of a kingdom plagued by murders, Layla struggles to live up to the expectations her parents, and a murderer stalks the townspeople. In agreeing to marry a foreign prince, she hopes to find a way to bring stability back to the land, but she fears the marriage, unlike her parents, will be devoid of love. On the eve of her betrothal's arrival, Layla sneaks away and enjoys one last passionate night with a stranger, but doing so threatens everything her parents laid out for her. As more lies come to the surface, Layla will do whatever it takes to keep her kingdom safe, even murder.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh. Should we go into? Do you want to go into the excerpt so we can hear her in her own words?
Yes, we can immediately do that. And
Yeah, and then we
I'm
can.
dressed up like her, so everyone knows I'm dressed up like her. She has a soul shard called Kier, and he's in my necklace.
So for the listeners who can't
Mhm.
see you, do you want to describe? Because it's a really beautiful outfit.
Thank you. It's a red and black corset with lace down my arms, and then I have a big red necklace on with a black chain, and it has a crow in it.
Oh, there's. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. It's small on my screen, so I didn't realize. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I
All
had
right.
to bring it. Kier is seems to be one of everyone's favorite characters, so I had to bring him in.
Oh, okay. So there's a character in the book. Okay.
Mm-hmm. She has a soul shard named Kier, and a soul shard is royals in this world have magical powers. Only royals,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that they got those magical powers is they had to give a piece of their soul, and
Oh.
that piece of their soul goes into an animal, and so her
Oh.
animal is a crow.
Oh, that's really cool. And that's why she. Oh, that's so neat. Okay. All right. Anyways, that to the excerpt. I'm sorry. That's so neat because now I need contacts, which I think we're gonna get in that excerpt. So I'm gonna mute myself.
Yes, you get contact with Kier. Yes, definitely. Because he's with her all the time. Okay, I will start. We're going to read the prologue and the first chapter. The sun glistened off of every petal of every flower I passed. They tucked in the window boxes hanging off my people's homes, lining the main road of Caskell, the closest town to my parents' castle. My castle. My heart sank. After what I've been through the past week, I wasn't sure how the sun was still shining. How did people go on with their lives after my parents, their king and queen, had been brutally murdered not even a week ago? I shook myself. I had to remember they all All they owned was now mine. They weren't here anymore. There would be no more quiet dinners, no more late night sparring, no more laughter. Above me, a crow cawed, my crow. In my head, I be walking in town without a guard after what happened to Derek and Mari. My parents' names jerked me to a halt. I stared up into the afternoon sky. The sun burnt my eyes. At least that was what I would tell everyone if anyone asked why I had tears pouring down my cheeks. Before I could answer the bird, a scream pulled my attention to the middle of town, closer to a bar called the Weary Traveler. My citizens passed me. It didn't seem like they'd even heard the yell. All their attention was on me. It wasn't normal for royals to stroll streets unaccompanied. I was the last royal left in my country. I probably should have brought at least but my ca- one guard with me. But my castle, where all my protection sat idly by, was far behind me, and whoever screamed was up ahead. I took off at a run. People mumbled, "My queen," and bowed their heads as I darted past, but I ignored them. Was I simply delirious? Or did that sound to see a man looming over a young girl? She was a petite brunette with stunning gray eyes, probably in her early teens, with a knife held to her stomach. Skittering to a stop, my feet slid along the hard-pressed dirt street. By now, a small crowd was gathering around, watching to see what the rogue royal would do. "Hey!" I screamed, drawing the man's attention to me. His face dropped in horror. I imagined what the man must be thinking, taking in my rumpled black tunic with blood-red pants. After my parents' death, I hadn't really had it in me to get out of bed, let alone change. This morning I'd woken up and felt the urge to walk my streets and mingle with my people, but I hadn't cared about my appearance. Now I wish I'd changed. The girl shook as the man dug his knife into her side deeper. "Papa!" she screamed, and my heart ripped in two. I used to call my father the same thing, and now he was gone. This man was lucky enough to have his daughter in his life, and this was how he treated her? It was inexcusable. My vision himself. The man's gray hair flipped as he turned, his beige silk tunic moving with his motion. Fear and recognition flashed in his bloodshot eyes as he jabbed the knife in my direction. Everyone knew who their new queen was. He knew exactly who he was dealing with. My vision blurred as I took a step back out into the main street. People mumbled around me as the man stalked forward. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I would bet they were as shocked as I was that someone was openly attacking their queen. "Please don't do this. We can fix this." I lifted my hands, showing him I had no ill will against him. He must have seen through my act, though, and he jerked toward me again. "No one can fix this. Daughter won't help." I opened my mouth to ask him what the hell he was babbling about, but he let out a scream and lunged for me again. My vision zeroed in and out, and the next thing I knew, the man was on the ground in a puddle of blood. In my hand was the man's knife. A red line streaked across his neck. Say something. An iron tang filled the air, and I glanced down to see blood coating my rumpled clothes. What the fuck? Around me, I heard a few citizens whisper the name Blood Queen. I hoped the nickname wouldn't stick. It was the first time I'd seen death, but it was the first time I was the one to have caused it. I became lightheaded and my vision began to spin. Later, after everything had been sorted out and I brought the girl to my castle to live, I'd found out the girl's father was trying to sell her body to pay off his gambling debts. How could any father be so desperate to use their child like that? Little did I know that would be the day I earned the title, which would strike fear into my enemies. From then on, I was known as the Blood Queen. Dun dun dun. Chapter 1, 5 years later. Warm blood oozed down my hand. The coppery scent danced in the air around me, the grip on my dagger almost slipping. A too loud grunt escaped the man's slit throat. It didn't matter how many people I killed. The little quickly moved my hand to his mouth, trying to staunch the noise. I couldn't let another sound slip past his lips. My people would never understand the things I did for them under the blanket of darkness. The man never saw me coming. They never did. Yanking out the dagger, I'd shoved deep into the spy's neck. Blood splashed over me like a warm blanket. It was a comforting feeling, knowing my people were safe tonight, because of me and my blade. They called me the Blood Queen. I was known as the most ruthless, bloodthirsty queen in all of Esper. But that wasn't because of my actions tonight. My people didn't know the Blood Queen was responsible for the deaths in their city. They thought there was a killer on the loose. I could never let them find out the truth. They wouldn't understand the reasons behind it, how I was protecting them. I hated being known as Blood Queen. I lost my temper once and was labeled bloodthirsty. With everything in me, I wanted to set the record straight, show my people the real me, but my most trusted advice to let the people be wary of me. I never wanted to be feared, but I trusted him to tell me what was best for me and my kingdom. Above me, Kier cawed, but I didn't waste my time searching the darkened skies for my midnight friend. He would check in with me later. The man's body went limp in my arms. I quickly shifted my grasp from his mouth to under his arms, letting him noiselessly sag to the ground. I'd followed the man for the last 48 hours and had seen enough to know he couldn't leave my country alive. The man had started visiting my castle a couple of weeks ago, posing as emissary for the kingdom of Garo. But Brant, so much more than a mere advisor to me, had quickly seen through his lies and decided he must have been a spy. I wasn't convinced he was even from Garo, but a spy from any country was not welcome in Kuzmal. I honestly didn't know what I would do without Brant. He kept me sane after my parents' death, half a decade ago, and had guided me into being the most powerful queen in Kuzmal's history. Leaving the jewels and gold there he'd stolen from my treasury. Instead, I pulled out a single golden ring, embossed with a B for Bathory, my father's ring. My ancestors had passed the ring down through the centuries to from one king to their heir, and so on and so forth. When surnames changed over the years, the ring was melted down and a new letter was pressed into the molten gold. When I'd realized this man had somehow managed to find his way into my treasury and siphon some of my riches, he'd signed his own death warrant. I didn't care about the gold or gems. Those were replaceable. This was not. The golden ring glittered under the moonlight. Behind me, a high-pitched woman's screech rang out, breaking the silence of the night. Time for me to go. I lifted the black cloth I always used to cover my face and took off down the alley, away from the scene. I had to get far enough away to not raise suspicion. My fitted black clothing would hide the blood soaking them well. It was part of the reason I'd chosen them for these little outings. All the right ways. Besides not having to worry about the fabric getting caught on anything, it accentuated my hourglass form, and I didn't care who you were. The right clothes could give you a boost of confidence. As I ran, I shoved the ring in one of the deep pockets covering my pants. Knowing it would be back in my treasury tonight relieved me. This ring didn't look like much, but it meant more to me and my kingdom than anything else in the land. This was not merely some trinket my father left behind. It was the key to the Kuzmal throne. To the outside world, I was already a queen, but it was a facade. Not until I put on this ring would I become queen of Kuzmal. Some silly tradition from years ago, but a tradition my father put his faith in. It was supposed to be handed down to me in some big ceremony. The entire country would turn out and watch as the last regent placed their successor's ring on the new regent's hand. But that plan had gone out the window when my parents had been murdered in their sleep 5 years ago, leaving a hole in my heart and my kingdom I'd yet to be able to fill. Throne, but since his and my mother's passing, I hadn't been able to bring myself to wear it. Wearing the ring felt like the final nail in my parents' coffin, the signal to the world they were really gone. I knew it was silly. My parents' bodies had been buried and rotting for half a decade, but still, something in me warred with the idea of fully taking the throne. Something was missing. I just didn't know what. Maybe when I found their killers, I would feel differently. But until I figured that out, the ring would stay in my treasury. As I ran, I used my powers to wrap darkness around me, shielding me from my citizens passing by. They rushed in pajamas with fussed hair and sleepy eyes, woken by the woman's screams, coming out to see what all the noise was about. A woman hugged her crying child at the entrance to her house. I wanted to push her into the house, to tell her this was no place for a baby, but I couldn't be seen now. Tugging on my shadows to reassure myself they were still there, I made sure to not bump into any of them as I wove between them, my shadows hiding me from sight. I found an opening and jumped, using it to propel me to a roof. From up here, I could see the mass of people gathering where I'd killed the spy. I could hear the scared cries lifting from the ground. Roofs were where I felt safest. I'd traversed these buildings many times over the years. Up here, I could disappear. I was never freer than when I was invisibly racing from rooftop to rooftop. There was something about being this close to the sky that made me feel like I could fly if I simply spread my arms and tried. I wished I could tell my people what was really going on, but Brant said it was too risky to be open and honest with my citizens, and no matter how much I wanted to tell them everything, I always listened to Brant. He had been my parents' advisors before me and guided them into prosperity, so who was I to go against his word? I raced from rooftop to rooftop, away from the scene I had created, away from the carnage. The air flying past me ripped at the hood I'd pulled over my head. I'd had this added to my clothing to hide my blood red hair. Red hair was a rare prolific my ancestors had been across the world. So if anyone had seen my crimson locks, there wouldn't be many people to get through to find out who the killer was. My curls fought to free themselves of their confinement, but I had a weighted hood made to ensure they couldn't worm their way out. Up ahead, I saw my my castle, its spires stretching far into the night sky, like fingers trying to pluck out stars. The inky darkness of the stones it was built with glittered, even with the absence of light. I love this about my home. It was more beautiful under the cover of night. Most people would see it as gloomy and dreary, but being one with the shadows, I could see its true beauty. I jumped down off the last roof. The only thing between me and the safety of my castle now was a well-worn dirt street leading to the wall surrounding my home. There was never anyone on the road at this time of night, so I crossed without checking if there was anyone using it. While searching the window in the always waited for me to return from these missions. He wanted to hear everything that happened while it was fresh in my mind to either praise me for my success or admonish me for my slip-up. So where was he tonight? A neigh broke the silence, and the sound of hooves sliding on the ground brought me to a halt. I turned to see a giant muscled white horse scrambling to get out of my way, towing a beautiful gold-encrusted carriage. The carriage sparkled in the moonlight as the mare reared into the air. Who could be in such a luxurious carriage at this time of night? I backflipped out of the street and out of the creature's way as she came back down, her massive hooves thundering to the ground, barely jumping out of the way quick enough to keep myself from becoming a red splat on the ground. Above me, I heard a crow's caw and then Kier's snarky voice in my head. Good one, Layla. Complete the mission only to get trampled by a horse and carriage. I scoffed and lifted my hand to the sky in an obscene gesture. I knew he saw it because I have to have a bird brush his wings against you, but it's not. It was like someone smacked a branch into your head as the hollow bones thumped into your squishy flesh. Cradling my head, I hissed, which made the horse in front of me bounce on its front end nervously. I had this effect on prey animals when I was cloaked in darkness. They couldn't see me, but they could smell me. It always triggered a flighty response. From atop the carriage, the driver stepped down on the other side of the animal and cooed, "Shh, Betsy, it's okay. No one's going to hurt you. I thought you were past this random spooking thing. What happened?" The man's voice was like silk on my ears. I took a step forward and ran my hand down the horse's neck. It stiffened, its eyes traveling back and forth between me and its master. I could still see the man, but I was more worried about the horse. I still couldn't see the man, but I was more worried about the horse. I didn't want its master thinking I couldn't be trusted because of me. If the horse stopped being useful because it spooked at my presence and the man put her animal's soft muzzle, its eyes widened when I realized I smelled like a human, and its body instantly relaxed. I would have Brant check the sales barn over the next few days to make sure they didn't dispose of the horse. As the horse calmed, I walked to the other side of it, intending to make my way over to the castle wall, but my gaze was drawn to its stunningly handsome master. He was a young man, probably in his early 20s by the looks of him, younger than me by at least 5 years, maybe more. His softly curled raven hair flowed to his shoulders, but his eyes were what struck me the most. The silver pools seemed to brighten everything around them. His velvety voice crawled along my skin as he said, "Hey, you better now?" The horse nodded and huffed out almost an answer. Curiously, the beast's fawn-colored eyes traveled to mine, and I wondered if there wasn't something more there behind them. The man patted the horse's neck and happily chirped, "Good. Then let's get to the weary traveler. A smile quirked up my lips as I left the two, a plan forming in my mind, and made my way over the castle wall. No one in the castle knew about my missions except Brant. Even being shrouded in darkness, I couldn't risk anyone seeing me. I climbed up the front spiral tower, the one which held my quarters. The edges of the bricks dug into my palm as I hoisted myself into the air. Wind tore at my tight clothing, and I felt a chill in the air that promised rain to come. It was a long, arduous climb since my rooms were at the top of the tower, but I had done it enough times to make it an almost effortless task. When I threw my feet through my window and onto my soft beige rug, I walked over to my bed, flopping down onto it. I let go of my magic, allowing my body to become corporeal once more. I wondered where Brant was. He was always creeping around the castle, waiting for my return on nights like this. "You took your time tonight." A deep, booming voice crawled out of the corner of my room. Anywhere. Brant stood from his seated position, the moon refusing to shine in the pitch blackness of that side of the room, by the window I always crawled through in. An alkaline nose poked through the shadows first, then his piercing mud-colored eyes. His lithe figure moved gracefully, more so than I ever could. His hands were held behind his back, but I knew they were covered in black gloves. They always were covered. I had once asked him if he always wore gloves because his hands were mangled, but all I got in response was a disapproving glare. Sitting up, I huffed out, "You scared the shit out of me. Why would you hide like that?" I had to have walked right past him without even noticing him. He was a sneaky one. "To show you how vulnerable you are when your head isn't fully in the game," he lectured. I snottily replied, "No one knows I'm going on these missions. Once I get in the palace courtyard, I'm home free. There's no reason to be on guard here." "You must always be on guard, Layla." He strode over to me and placed. "You're the lone heir to the Kuzmal throne, the last Bathory. You're more special than you realize. If something were to happen to you, what would your people do?" It was like he'd thrown a bucket of cold water over me. Of course, he was right. I needed to be more on guard, especially when I wasn't hiding myself with my powers. I slumped in my seat, feeling like the errant child being scolded by her uncle. Brant would never fill the roles my parents left, but he'd always been like the uncle I'd never had. He'd been there for every big milestone and picked me up through every stumble. Brant sat on the bed next to me, placing his arm over my shoulder and dragging me into a hug. He sighed in my hair. "I worry about you. I know you're still fragile after Mari and Derek's murders." I fought back tears at the mention of their names. He'd always used their given names. I didn't think I'd ever heard him call them king or queen in the time I'd been alive. The crack in my voice was muffled against his chest when I answered. I'll hope in his muddy brown eyes before asking, "So how did it go with Sauron?" Hearing the spy's name turned my attention back to the business of the night, the story flowing out of me with ease. After I told Brant about my mission, I shooed him out of my room, telling him I was tired from my expedition and I needed some sleep. Murder was exhausting. I don't know why I told him the lie. It slipped off of my tongue without much thought behind it. There weren't many times in my life I'd lied to Brant, but apparently tonight would be one of them. It would have been weird to tell him I was going out in search of a man, and I really didn't want Brant involved in my personal life more than absolutely necessary. After I shut my bedroom door behind Brant, I moved around my room, swiftly taking off clothes and chucking them under my enormous four-poster bed. There was a chute for all my dirty laundry to go straight down to the room in the castle where my clothing was washed and mended. But I couldn't have a servant washing blood out of my clothes, now could I? People might on my mission myself, usually the same night, but these would have to wait. There was a delicious game of it. I jumped when a caw rang out in the room, and I spun to see Kira perched on my windowsill, the moonlight glistening off his shadowy feathers. His voice rang clear in my head as he scolded, "Why did you lie to him?" I answered back in my mind, "I wanted him out. I have somewhere to be." Striding over to my walk-in closet, I searched for my least extravagant outfit. I wanted to fit in. I wanted him to see me as a random citizen he happened to run into. I'd give anything to be anyone but the Queen of Kuzmal tonight. Anyone but the Blood Queen. "You're going to find that carriage driver, aren't you?" I cut my gaze to Kira and asked, "So what if I am?" His voice was annoyed when it cracked through my thoughts. Why waste your time? You're a queen. You're the blood queen, for fuck's sake. You heard Brant the other day. My parents arranged a marriage before their deaths. I will meet the man tomorrow. This could be the last chance I get for a bit of fun. Let me have this. Now stood in the middle of my room, pulling the clothes I wore to tend my garden over my head. The brown shirt and loose, comfortable pants I now donned were anything but flattering. Gardening calmed me, and I did it often. So the clothes were covered in stains, and holes dotted the outfit where my trowel had snagged on the loose fabric. After I laced up my black boots, I flung my arms out. How do I look? Kier cawed before opening his beak and snarkily announcing, Truly splendid! How will the man ever keep his hands off you? I scoffed before reaching back into my closet and grabbing the blonde wig I sometimes wore on these little outings. It was lonely in the castle with Brant and my maid Maggie as my only companions. Going to town and hanging out with my citizens in disguise was my only reprieve from being the Blood Queen. While my people knew who I was, I didn't venture out much after my parents' death. The human mind, being so forgetful, worked in my favor. A few years passed out of the public eye, and I pulled my luscious red locks up into a bun before pinning the wig in place, tugging on it a bit to make sure it was secure before striding toward the window. Kier pushed off the window's ledge and hovered, waiting for me. I threw my leg over the windowsill and lifted my chin as I announced, Just wait and see. And then that's the end of chapter 1.
Oh, wow. So maybe I misheard this, but it sounded like in the beginning of chapter 1 that you said something like she was the like something about there, like that might have hinted that there's more than one queen in this world or in this
So
area.
yeah, there's 3 kingdoms.
Okay.
She's not the only one. There's Kuzmal, Garo, and Ogren.
Gotcha. Do we see those other ones, or do we only see her?
So we don't see any of the other ones in this book. We see Garo.
Oh, you froze. What did you say? We
no,
only
that's
see...
fine. We don't see any people, any royalty from the other kingdoms.
Okay.
Really, not a lot of them. We see one person from Garo.
Okay.
Yeah. The other kingdoms will come into play. It's mentioned a lot throughout the book, like their territories and like the weather in their territories and how those territories different from from her territory. And we'll see more of it in book 2 and book 3.
I see. And this is a new release. I thought I saw somewhere that it came out on November 14th, which is 3 days ago. Today is November 17th that we're recording this.
It's been only 3 days. It feels like it's been so long. Oh my gosh.
It's been a lifetime.
It really has. I've been doing so much.
Oh, you have to. It's your book, really. Baby. Yeah. You got to give it a good push into the world. So, all right. So we this was a lot. So she's the Blood Queen, and and so she didn't want to be the Blood Queen in the prologue. Right. And like, what exactly is the Blood Queen? I couldn't really get like a read on it. So there's
it's just the nickname that her people gave her.
I see. So there's not, because Brant seemed to hint that there was more to it than that. I mean, we know the story of the what's her name from Bathory, but you know, this is your fantasy take Bathory, on it. Yeah, Elizabeth. That was like the name. The name has escaped me. It is a crow that has flown away. I can't retrieve it. Happens.
Trust me, it happens. I did a interview where I called her Catherine, and I was like, that's not her name.
I totally see how that can happen. It's just the coincidence though that she's Queen Layla, and I was just writing a chapter for one of my books with a character named Layla, spelled a little bit differently. I just find that hilarious that like I was writing from Layla's point of view, and now we're talking about a Queen Layla. So in my head, like there's a little like mini me who's like cackling away at this. Because like, to me, that's the best. Yeah, it's like this is something that only authors experience.
Yeah,
we have these weird little things.
We have little people in our heads talking to us. Yeah,
oh, of course. Doesn't everybody? Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
I'm
before
kind of
we-
surprised everybody doesn't, but apparently they don't.
I think they do, and they just don't want to admit it.
Maybe they think it's weird, but
That's true. That's true. Because only writers really need little people in our head,
yeah,
characters to
that's
give us
true.
grief. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's true. I don't know. I've
because
always had little people in my head and like make my own scenarios and
yeah, same. But that's why we're authors. Like that's like a
yeah, exactly.
prerequisite. If
Yeah.
there was like a test to be an author, like, do you hear voices in your head?
Yeah,
Are they telling
exactly.
you to write stories? There's some kind of crazy beeping going on. Oh, sorry about that. The beeping turned out to be the power supply.
It's a little necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the characters are jealous that I didn't. The last chapter I wrote was not one of the like POV characters that are like.
Oh
It's
no,
I
yeah, I
needed
can't
like
do that.
sometimes they're not there and we need to see something that's going on. I need to know what the villain is doing. I need eyes on the villain.
Yeah.
So, um, that was Layla's job. So, anyways, now that they
Anyway,
have taken their revenge, and the computer is all good, the power supply is all good. We're going back to we were talking about the Blood Queen. We're talking about Brant, who was
yes.
he seemed to be insinuating that there was more to the Blood Queen than just a name that they gave her. And the first chapter seems to support that because she was like she's with a dude and she's covered in blood and like what was she
Mm-hmm.
doing and like it cut out when Brant asked her how it went, so we didn't hear the lie she told. So like what was the lie? And
Okay,
yeah,
wait, repeat that one more time.
there was a lot of questions there. So let's go back. So the lie that she told Brant, what was that? Let's go
Oh,
with
the
that
lie
first.
that she told Brant. I will read it again because I know exactly where it is. Hang on, hang on.
Mm. Yeah, because that part cut. I was like, no, I want to know, and I didn't want to like unmute
Oh,
to
okay.
like say no,
I get what
read
you're
it
saying.
again. So I was like, nope, this is one of the questions we have to ask.
It is. Okay, it says, after I told Brant about my mission, I shoot him out of my room, telling him I was tired from my expedition and I needed some sleep. Murder was exhausting.
Did she actually tell him that murder is exhausting?
No, she did not
She's
actually
thinking
tell
that.
him murder.
So does he
Yeah.
know that she killed that she's killing people?
Yeah, he's the one that's sending her out on missions.
Like that's like usually the queen doesn't go out and do things. They usually
I
have
know.
people who go and why does it have to be her? Like why not
So a lot
literally
of
anyone
her
else?
person, not a lot of her personality, but a lot of her issues is she doesn't think that she's ready to be queen, so she lets other people take roles for her instead of taking those roles on herself. So Brant's the one that really runs things right now, and she allows him to run things, and it becomes a problem later on.
I see. And so all right, so this dude, was he really a spy?
Is not really a spy.
Okay, that was the vibe I was getting. Is like okay. And like she doesn't sound like she's got some magic, it sounds like.
Yes,
So how
she's a shadow mommy.
okay, what is that exactly? Like what let's hear more about like how the magic that she has works and what the yeah. What are the
So
rules?
she can control shadows. She cannot like wrap them around other things, only herself. Um, and um, her powers and royalty powers kind of go hand in hand with her soul shard. So like her soul shard is a crow. You think of shadows, darkness when you think of crows. Um, there's someone that has a horse soul shard, and his power is strength.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see a lot about that character and that person. There's even one who
Oh no, you
has,
froze again.
oh no.
Were you gonna say something not complimentary about the horse?
No, no, no. I
So they
said
weren't taking revenge?
no, no, no. I
Or
was
is the
gonna
crow
say
jealous because you were saying
one
something too
no.
nice?
One of the royals' powers, or their soul shard is a horse and their power is strength. And then there's another one whose soul shard is a centipede, and he's more like poisonous kind of.
That's interesting. I
Yeah,
don't think centipedes are centipedes poisonous?
I think that their bites are.
Maybe some of them are. There's like
Yeah.
probably a
They're
lot of
like the really
different.
big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are scary big.
They're disgusting.
You know, like approaching Alice in Wonderland size.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So all right, so there's a shadow thing. So how did she get the soul shard? Like when did she have it in the prologue 5 years ago? Is that something she
Being
got when she
royalty,
became
they're born
queen?
like that.
So it's just they're
They're
just born with
born
it.
with their with their soul shard.
So they come out of the womb holding the soul shard,
No.
or it just appears.
So
Like how does that work?
they're born, and then their soul shard comes and finds them.
How does it do that? Does it have legs?
Well, I mean, a bird has wings. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So like the actual animal that is
Yeah.
associated with it brings it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Is that the only time?
Well, the animal is the soul shard.
I see.
So, like, the animal soul is a shard of her soul.
Animal soul. Oh, okay. I get that. So the animal is not in the crystal.
No.
It's an actual animal.
Yes.
I see. That makes more sense than what I was picturing. I'm picturing a gem with like centipede legs. Watching around searching for the other half of its soul.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So, okay. All right. So she seems to enjoy the killing. That doesn't seem like a thing that she's unhappy about.
No, I feel like she does enjoy the killing, but I think that it's not just for killing's sake. She enjoys protecting her kingdom and her people.
I see. So she thinks by killing this person who she thought was a spy, but then she was saying that like there's rumors of like murders and that's her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a rumor that there's like a serial killer.
Well, there
out
is.
on the street.
She's
yeah,
the queen.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what's going on with this carriage driver? So she doesn't seem to want to be queen.
No, she doesn't in the beginning. I agree. Things have to happen for her to really kick her in the butt so that she really wants to take on her role.
Can a queen in this world marry a carriage driver, or they can just have a fling with them?
She can have flings with whoever she wants. She's like 28 in the story. She's already like she's not like at her sexual peak, but she knows what she's about. She knows what she wants and she knows what she likes, and she takes what she wants.
I say, it's good to be the queen.
It's good to be the queen.
Or she's going to discover that, I guess.
Yeah, the carriage driver. Yeah. I don't want to give anything away.
That's fine.
Carriage driver is important. She doesn't know it yet, but he is important.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. So, all right. So is this loosely based on Elizabeth Bathory, or is this
very, very loosely. Very, very, very loosely.
So we're just taking the blood thing and
then
leaving our own. That's cool. No, that's very cool.
Yeah, the main male character is very, very, very loosely based on Ivan the Impaler.
I see
that in the book, and someone pointed that out, so I was very happy about that.
Does he impale people in this book?
Maybe in his past. Not in the book.
He's not doing it.
Past.
He's not doing it in the present. He's a reformed impaler.
They're both very vicious people, and he's very no nonsense. Like, this is how I feel. This is who I am, and people either love me or hate me, and I don't care either way.
Is he the carriage driver or the dude they want her to marry?
He's somebody.
Not giving anything away.
No, not with him. I love him so much.
That's all right. So you said this book. This is book 1, and it just came out on the 14th.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Is there a release date for book 2? Is that like, are you writing it?
Book 2 is going to be, yes, I'm just starting writing it. Book 2 will be.
Oh no. The characters have other plans.
I know.
They've cut you off again.
Well, I broke my hand.
Oh.
Yeah, so that put me back 2 months.
Were you impaling people?
I was not impaling people. No.
How did you break your hand?
Breaking up a dog fight.
Oh, that's a good reason to break your hand.
Yeah, there's blood everywhere, and it was just bad. Anyway,
I mean, I think Layla would approve.
yeah, I think she would. So, yeah, that put me back 2 months. So I would normally have the second book almost written by now.
Yikes. Is it almost healed, the hand?
Yes, I have a brace on it. I don't have it on right now, but
Oh, wow.
brace supposed to come off on Tuesday.
I see. I see. Like, so like, how did, like, what did you break on the hand? And like, the hand has a lot of bones, and you say you break the hand. You didn't break all the bones.
No, I broke one, and it was
Okay.
just a fracture. It wasn't like a full break.
I see. I see. So, okay. That's good. Cause
It
like
was
when you
just a
said,
hairline fracture.
okay, cause like I was picturing like fingers at all different angles.
Yeah, and I was trying to write like everything I could, like on my phone with one hand.
That's how I write a lot of things.
Oh, it's miserable. I don't know how you do that.
Like I just after working all day, like I can't look at it's sometimes at night I can't
Makes
look at the
sense.
screen, but on my phone, like I can hit the like microphone button and just like dictate. Um and like fix its issues because the phone is like right there, and I can put like a red
Mhm.
light filter on, and like it's just, I don't know, it's smaller and I can just focus better than like the giant screen with the billion tabs on the phone. Like you can have a billion
Oh,
tabs, you can't see them all.
yeah.
um
Okay. Okay. That makes
and just
sense.
being able, and like you get frustrated with like the typing on the phone one handed, and then you just
Yeah.
start dictating because you're like, oh, forget it, I could say it faster than I could freaking type it. And then you just kind
Interesting.
of like, I don't know, like I wrote like 700 words in like 30 minutes the other day, and then I was out cold because I was
Wow.
exhausted. It was like 1 a.m, but like I was like, so tired. My fingers and my brain were just, they were not in sync at all. Like I'm hitting like all the wrong letters are appearing on screen. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna say it because we're gonna be here all night.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
the fingers are not doing it
Yeah,
tonight.
dictating it would have, my brain just doesn't work like that. I just can't dictate. It's like
I
there's
can,
something lost in
yeah,
between my mouth and my brain. And
I
it
can,
goes, instead of my mouth, it goes
yeah,
to my
yeah.
hands.
But I can do it for dialogue
Mhm.
because that's supposed to be spoken. And I
Right.
can do it like, I have to have like, some people can dictate while they're wandering around or like driving. I can't. I have to be able to see the words appearing on screen, and I can do it.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, because then it's like, then the words are appearing as if I were typing them, but I'm not typing them. And like, I'm not a fast dictator. Oh, more
Right.
dictators of my own little fictional country. But yeah, but as long as I can see the words on the screen, like I can do it. And like I can, and
Mhm.
I have to stop and fix anything that it doesn't get right. And for whatever reason, for some reason that like triggers the, and I can just keep going. Sometimes
Oh,
I can't
okay.
focus on it, but like I don't know, like uh, for me sometimes it's just, sometimes I just, you have
Yeah.
to get the story out, and sometimes you can't look at the screens, you have eye strain, you're like, okay, let's go to the phone. Okay, the phone is just frustrating with the typing on the screen, but the words are there and they have to come out, and you just find a way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. um yeah, so there's all different ways to dictate too. Like I'm just doing it into like Google Drive.
Oh,
um
okay, yeah.
Not doing anything special, and half the time it's like, it hears like, it puts like random brand names in, and I'm like, I did not say Boboli pizza. I don't know what I was saying, but
That's
like I
funny.
didn't say that. So it's also kind of fun doing it too, because sometimes it'll like mess up in like the wackiest ways, and you're like, I didn't even know that was a word that you had in your vocabulary.
That's funny.
um yeah, yeah, especially like the names. Sometimes, when you're in the flow, you forget that like it doesn't understand your character names, and you get the
Yeah.
wildest things, which is always fun.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's like when you go to Starbucks. I don't do Starbucks, but I've heard stories. Like I don't drink coffee, so I don't like it. So like I have no reason to go to Starbucks. Like,
Mhm.
um, and like I heard that they like mess up your name on the cup,
All the
and people
time.
do that to get
All the
character
time.
names. I was like, dude, just like
Oh, that's
speak
smart.
something into dictation and like let Google mess it up.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for it. It's free.
Yeah, really.
you know? It's yeah. Anyways. All right. So you book 2 is so maybe sometime next year.
Yeah.
Look for it.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
then book 3, maybe, I don't know how long you usually, like, it sounds like you might be a fast writer, like when you're not like laid up with a hand
Yeah,
in 3.
I like to give myself a year, but that doesn't usually pan out. Just so I
Oh,
can do
okay.
all the things that you need to get done, formatting, editing,
Right.
character art, lots of setup behind the scenes.
Right. Okay. So, if you're, so maybe later in 2024, right? We're in 23.
Yes.
Yeah, 2024. Look for, does book 2 have a title?
I'm thinking something like Broken Queen. I haven't figured it out completely.
Okay. I don't know, because some people like have the title before there's like, I have an author
Yeah.
friend who, she has all the titles out towards, in like,
Yeah,
I think
I
there's
have a
12
friend like
books in
that
the
too.
series,
Mm-hmm.
and like, and I'm like, I'm calling, I'm just calling this thing, this whip, whatever like pops into my head, or like, I have this one story that right now it's just called The Jack-o'-lantern Witch, because there's a jack-o'-lantern and there's a witch. There's only 700 words
Yep.
in the story so far. So
Yep.
that's the title until I
No, that's
figure,
better than
until
me.
something else happens and we get a better, clearer picture of what we are doing in this book.
I have a book that I'm almost done writing too, and it's an urban fantasy. And in the doc, it's called UF Fantasy. And I'm almost done writing it. And I've written like 101,000 words, and it still doesn't have a title.
Yep. That's me too. The whip is like, the title is like sometimes the last thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, like sometimes there's some like cool, like this trilogy I'm writing now, like there's a whole bunch of like ex-gods roaming around, like just causing issues. So I was like, so I've just been calling it Rogue Gods, and I was like, that's
Well,
actually a
that's a
pretty
good
neat
name.
title. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep this, even though it's
Yeah.
like, I'm just calling it like a Siam, know.
And it's hard when you have a series because usually you want your names to kind of match. So that's
Yeah,
really hard for me because I don't plan out that far in advance.
same. I have this one series where the titles are all like name of series, some word, like some action. Like
Oh, okay.
Cursebreaker, Enchanted, Cursebreaker, Trapped,
Oh, gotcha.
Cursebreaker,
Gotcha.
Reveal. Like, and then in book 10, I was like, this doesn't, nothing that is going on in here kind of works for that. So I was like, we have to change the naming convention. It doesn't
Oh,
work for this.
yeah. I have a series, my first series, my She Awakens series. It was supposed to be 2 books and it ended up being 4.
Ooh,
So
I know
because
how that
characters
happens.
just decided that that's what was going to happen. And so I had to make up a bunch of names. So it's she blank, she blank.
And then you're like, I'm tired of this naming convention. We're going to call it something else.
Yeah.
Thank God for series pages.
And I
They
feel
make
like,
things.
yeah, when I was doing the cover for that first book, I changed the name while the cover was being made. So
I've done that. I've had it called, with 45 until it was like, okay, the cover is being made. It's in front of me. And we need
yeah,
a
I
real
need to
title.
figure out the name for
We need a
real.
real, well, the real title, please stand up.
Yeah, really.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay. So I had a bunch of other questions. So there was, Brant. It seems like there's, I think you answered this already. There's something more to the Blood Queen than meets the eye, than this being a
Yeah, and
nickname.
Brant is kind of like her uncle. I
Oh,
based him
he
off
is
of
related. Okay. Otherwise
he's
I was gonna be
not
like,
technically related. He's not like blood related. Um, but she thinks of him as an uncle, and she thinks of we mentioned.
oh, characters interfering again.
Yeah, exactly. I based Brant off of like Batman's Alfred kind of person.
I see. So he's not gonna turn on her or do anything too terrible.
She knows that he has her best interest at heart.
Okay. And how does he likes her as like a niece or a
Yeah,
daughter, not in any other. Okay.
right.
Okay. And like there's a lot of blood imagery in here. So like that's gonna tie into something somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yep.
special thing you won't tell us about. I'm
Yep.
feeling there's a connection there. Um yeah. Is this a romance, or is this
Yes. So it's fantasy romance. So it's like there's a fantasy plot story and then there's romance sprinkled in.
I see. So is it more romance or more like action, or
I think it's more fantasy action.
that is very
But there is
cool.
spice in it, so.
Well, yeah, if she's having flings.
And the spice happens rather early in the story.
Oh,
Yeah, chapter 3. You guys don't have to wait long.
I guess not. That's I'm just trying to get I realized that when I restarted everything, I didn't restart the show notes, and I'm like, where are my questions?
Oh no.
I was just going to flip back to the other screen, and I'm like, it's not here. That's because I had to restart the computer and I had to do all the updates.
Oh my gosh.
And I was rushing to get back in here, not to leave you alone for too long. This is never. I don't usually have any sort of technical difficulty, so it's like I'm off my game now.
Oh no, that's the worst.
Yeah, but it's okay. I've done this is the 81st episode of the podcast, so eventually you can't do these without there being some kind of issue at some point. So
Yeah.
the fact that I did 80 of these without an issue is I think it's a pretty good run.
That's a pretty good streak.
Yeah, I'm not too mad at my computer. It's not my computer, it's the power supply that screwed everything up, and then my computer decided to get in on the fun.
Of course it did, always.
It's that's probably on me. I should probably restart it more than every 80 episodes or something.
I feel like that's an author thing though. I never turn my computer off either. It goes into sleep mode. That's about all it gets.
It's because what if I need to write something? It needs to be there for me when I need it.
Yeah, and I've had moments where it's like, well, I have to update that right now, and I don't want to wait for my computer to turn on.
Right? That's totally me. So the murder of her parents, is she gonna be able to is that something that she's gonna try and solve, or that's
of the story? It's not a huge part of the story.
So it's it's just a thing, and that it's not.
She does solve it in the first book.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that is something that's laid out closer to the end of the story.
Okay, so it's not something, because it didn't seem like something she was focused on, which seemed a little bit odd that 5 years had passed and they've been murdered, but from the prologues there, I didn't get a sense of did anybody do anything other than hey, let's throw them a funeral, let's crown her queen. And
yeah, no, you're gonna see a lot more of that as the book goes on.
Okay, so it wasn't oh, hey, you're queen now, and we're gonna put them in the ground, and that's it. We're not even gonna look for whoever did this.
Yeah, no. She finds out who did it, and it's pretty traumatic. But yeah, she finds out who did it.
Oh wow, and I wonder what she's gonna do with that knowledge. Is there any other magic in this trilogy? Is it just going to be a trilogy, or we probably, I guess you may not know. The characters may not have informed you if they intend to.
I plan on a trilogy and a I've been playing back and forth with a prequel.
And the prequel would be the parents.
A lot of the parents stuff. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I'm curious. What were they like?
They were interesting.
Get a little. She's pretty interesting.
You get a little insight into how her parents were throughout the book. There's a few key scenes throughout the book where you see a little bit about what they were like, how their relationship was, her relationship with them, and their relationship with other people in the castle and stuff like that.
So if there's spies, there's some kind of conspiracies, or people, are they trying to get her off the throne? Do people know are there people out there who might?
There is someone out there who wants to take her throne. Yeah.
Do they have a legitimate claim?
To her throne? No.
They're just
they just want power.
They don't see her she doesn't seem like she's all that effective as a leader. So I could see that they're seeing a power vacuum.
Exactly.
I see. So there are really spies.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then there's this political marriage.
Yes. One that her parents set up for her before they were murdered.
Oh, so they set this up 5 years ago, and now
Yes.
it's a thing. It's actually happening.
Yes.
Why did it take 5 years? I guess they were giving her time to grieve and get her
Yes.
kingdom in order. Is the fellow another royal?
Yes. I can tell you that. Yes.
Is he from another kingdom?
Yeah, he's from the Kingdom of Garo.
I see. So this is like I guess they're looking for like an alliance or
Yeah,
a
exactly. An alliance against Okran because Okran's like the super bad country.
what's super bad about it?
They have a lot of power and a lot
Like
of money, and
like a
they want to take
political
over.
or
They want
military
to take
power?
over the whole everything. They want to rule everything,
I see.
and they don't really care how they get that.
I see. So that something we're going to see in the first book, or that we're going to see more of
We're
Okram? I think you
it's
said in the
mentioned
second
in the
and third.
first book. There's interactions.
That's more something we're going to see later.
A lot of the political stuff will happen in book 2.
I see. No, that's really cool. Is there any? Is there any other types of magic? I don't know. Did I ask that already? Off my
Just the
game
royals
today.
have magic, and their magic, they have all different kinds of magic, strengths,
Oh, okay.
shadows.
So it's just the royals.
Yeah.
So not like so no common people have any sort of magic.
No. Mm-mm.
What if they were like a bastard or something? Like a
If they were a
royal,
bastard.
would they
I haven't
have?
really thought about a bastard.
And you're gonna think
There
about it now.
there is
Here.
I don't want to give away too much. There is
Yeah.
mention of something kind of close to that. And it's still a question mark. So there's a mention of someone. It's just in passing. Trying to word this the right way. There could be, and
And your characters are preventing you from selling this.
my characters are like, you are giving away so much.
Let's see if they'll let you say what you were trying to say.
Yeah. I'm trying to think how to say this. I would say that it would depend on the bastard whether they had powers or not.
I see. So it's not a guarantee that if you have some royal blood, you'll have the soul shard.
Right.
No, that's pretty cool. No, it sounds like a very cool story. I'm definitely interested. I'm not a big fan of romance, but I am. This is definitely like the whole Elizabeth Bathory thing. Like I'm just like very curious, like how loosely
Now you're
and
gonna
like
go look her
what
up, huh?
parts. No, I know of her. Not every detail, obviously, but no, it's just like my brain is just like spinning off on a
Yeah,
million
you see
tangents.
mention of that in chapter 2.
Is she gonna bathe in blood?
No. But someone says that is the rumor that the queen bathes in blood to try and stay young. So the royals also live longer than normal humans. And
Right.
she's like, I'm not even 30 yet. Of course I look young.
Yeah. I mean, she is also killing people and getting blood splashed on her.
Exactly.
So technically she's kind of sort of taking like a blood sponge bath if you think about it.
I suppose.
I mean, it's on her and she has to sponge it off. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
she's kind of doing it.
Yep.
Yeah, no. Is there anything else you want to say about the Blood Queen or the trilogy or anything else?
So let me see. You can get blood.
And the characters are like, no more spoilers.
Yeah. And the paperback I'm very proud of. It's very pretty.
Can you describe it for those who are just listening or don't have a visual?
So
Use your words,
chapter.
author.
I know. I'm telling you, there's there's a break between my mind and my mouth. I'm telling you. So there's you'll just have to look up the cover, but the cover is on every, or the cover image is on every chapter with blood and
It's very dramatic. It's a black cover.
crow
The text is
feathers.
like silver y,
Yeah.
and there's like red splashes, which now we know is blood. No,
There's
it's a
a
very
2-page
dramatic
map.
cover. Ooh,
2-page map.
maps.
We like
Very
maps.
cool. I
Yeah.
don't have any for my books. I'm like jealous.
Oh,
But like the characters keep changing the geography. People don't know about it because they're changing the geography of parts that like we haven't visited yet. So I'm like, how can I make
so now
a
I have to stick with that.
You know?
Yeah.
Since there's no map, nobody knows that they've changed the geography of the left corner about 15 times.
Yep. Yeah, I've run into that problem where I'm like, okay, now I'm stuck.
Yeah, you're like, I need this specific feature to be here for a plot point. It's not there. And I'm like, this is not going to work. But yeah.
Let me see. You can buy it everywhere. Apple, Kobo, Google, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. Amazon has the paperback right now. Barnes and Noble will have the paperback within the month, I'm sure.
That all depends on Ingram, if you're using Ingram or Drafted Digital.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes they're a little slow.
Sometimes Barnes and Noble itself is slow. Like it can be
true.
It can, because sometimes you'll see it like everywhere else, like, and then you're like, come on, Barnes and Noble, and it's just like, not getting the memo.
I'm trying to think of what else.
You can follow me
on all social media. You can follow me at Caitlin Denman Books. It's the same across everything. Thank goodness. I think that's it.
Yeah, so go check out The Blood Queen. And this has been another episode of Fantasy Lore and More. Today we had Caitlin Denman talking about The Blood Queen, and we run into technical issues galore. Characters interfered. So we hope you enjoyed, and that I did some phenomenal editing on this to make it less obvious where the technology failed us. But we are fantasy authors. We write about magic, and if you've ever read any of the Dresden books, you know that technology and magic do not mix. So expecting perfect technical quality like out of fantasy authors it's a bridge too far. We're just such magical creatures that we cannot be contained by technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for listening. Thank you, Caitlin, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome to come back and talk about whatever book 2 is going to be called.
Awesome.
Or if you have another fantasy series, feel free to come back and talk about that. Like,
ooh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's fantasy or fantasy adjacent, like, I'm a fan, I'm interested, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening, and yeah, we'll be back with another fantasy author tomorrow and another fantasy book. And until then, I'm Melinda Kucsera. This was Caitlin Denman, and yeah, go out and read some fantasy books.
Yeah.
Thank you.